Welcome to another installment of the Unlikely Angel brand series. We are back with Mikhala Jené, Damier Johnson, Diamond Henry, and Sam Smoot. We are sharing about how we as black creatives oftentimes we get seen but never appreciated. And with that being said, do you feel responsible to represent in your community through your work, or does it feel like pressure?
Both could be true. I definitely feel responsible. Um, I feel responsible just from a human perspective, just for humanity in general, um, black or not, and then even more responsible than blackness, to be an example or to not make all the hard work and sacrifice that my family and ancestors did to get to this point be in vain. And I think it also can feel like pressure to the point where we were talking about earlier about burnout. There's so many things that are fueling your own personal drive, the drive for expectations to be met, even from your family, even in a good way, not even in an overbearing way. Um, your own personal responsibility, but then your responsibility on your responsibility in this world. All of that can be daunting on your worst day. And so I feel both the responsibility and the pressure, but I've been trying to do better at giving myself more grace um, and giving myself more space for my human nature. I'm not a superhero, you know, and it's not my cross to carry as a whole, but it is my responsibility to be a part of helping to carry that cross.
I agree. I 100% totally understand wanting to be a good role model to those who are under you or even around you, your peers. But it is important, like you said, to remind yourself it's not your burden to bear. And um, I have a niece and nephews, and I think it is very important that they see um, someone successful above them, especially as a black woman. But black women, I think, face the most scrutiny in these situations, especially in media, and we see it all the time. And just media as a whole, and like we never hear rappers being told you got to be a better role model to the young boys, you got to be this, but like female rappers on the other hand, every little thing they're like, well, that dress, you're too revealing, what about the children, what about the children? And I think it's really vital that we remind ourselves that we are human. And it is who we are at the core. Like, we know sex sells, but yes, what if she's just inherently a sexual person? If that's who she wants to be, she has every right to. Whether or not she wants to be a role model or he wants to be a role model, that's completely up to them. I think it is kind of like a double-edged sword, like we mentioned earlier. But as for myself, I do find it important for me to be a role model to the people that I personally care about, the opinions of the people that I know matter to me. And just a little small tidbit story. When I was in college, or just recently, not I graduated a few years ago, but my sister called me and she was like, your niece, I love you, Mia, shout out to you. She was getting like really good grades and she was like super happy about it. And she said, oh, I'm kind of getting a little choked up a little bit, but she went to my sister and she's like, yeah, I got good grades because I want to be smart like Auntie Diamond. I want to go to college like Auntie Diamond. And like, I've never had conversations with her about that or anything like that, but just seeing that they're seeing what you're doing without even having to work on it or like put that into their brains, that they're seeing you whether you like it or not. So how you carry yourself to those that matter is also very important. But I think it is also very crucial to say, I want to be a role model, but it's not my obligation.
A little both. I feel like I am a role model to those who I take under my wing by default. I don't feel obligated to do it, but I do it because they have no one else. A lot of the times, I don't know why, but I tend to again attract people who have way less than me, where they don't have friends, family, people to look up to, what have you. And I know what it's like to feel alone. So for me, it's a burden that's heavy, but God gave me the strength to do so. Because if I don't do it, who is? If not me, then who? If not now, then when? So for me, it's like if someone needs that help, if someone needs to see somebody that looks like me, that's in the community like I am, but living my life the way that I am living it, then I'll give that to them, because who am I to deny you a better path? So I try and just look at it as Cause it's like on one hand, you know, you want to make sure that whoever look up to you, they know that you're not perfect and that you do make mistakes, and you know, just recognize that and have that discernment, you know. But on the other hand, it is kind of like a great honor, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the times, like you said, with these rappers, they're not preaching nothing that's good. They're preaching like all type of, you know what they doing, preaching all type of stuff. So it's like in a world where the media is so worldly and so sinful, if you can be somebody's outlet to like, hey, you don't have to be of the world in that way, why not do it? So it's kind of like I feel it, but like I honor it as well. Like it feels like an honor sometimes.
I think y'all covered all bases. I don't know. I try to not let that pressure get to me, and just show up and make sure I'm being a good representation, not only for my people but for my mama, for my mama and my grandma, because my dad, they raised me a certain way, and it'll be a dishonor to them for me to act as anything else. Like they didn't raise me with sense. So first, that's for me. Like if I'm a gentleman, I'm gonna be a gentleman. I'm not going, yeah, and I want to be a good person because that's just what I am. So it's like I lead with that right there. So anybody associated with me, they're like, oh, that's good people. And that's kind of more of what I want to do. Like if Sam's attached to this person, I can bring them in then. So that's how I am.
I think something I do want to add that you just reminded me of is, like, you know, as I've stated, I've gotten more closer to God recently, like extremely close. And something that I've learned is that Christians were called to stand apart for other people. So I try and like let my goodness be shown through my fruits. So the way I speak, like I'm trying to like clean up my tongue. I'm trying not to talk about, you know, women in a sexual way. Like just really clean up how I think, how I am, because I know that people around me, whether they're friends or just seeing me standing in line, like I want them to feel that goodness and want to pass it forward. You know what I mean? So that's like kind of what I try and do. I don't try and be good so other people can know I'm good. I try and be good because that's what Christ calls for. And if you do that, then other people are going to feel your love. They're going to feel your kindness. And then they just going to keep on going. Then like church says, LA going to look like heaven, you know? So, yeah.
And sorry. And just kind of going off of what everyone already said, and like you said, not letting that pressure get to you. I think it is very important to remember that too, because just as much as you can do good and put the good out there, people who are negative are going to always find the negative. It does not matter. Like we mentioned female rappers and stuff earlier, you know, Megan Thee Stallion's graduated college, you know, first gen to do all that. She has these foundations. She does so much good, but that does not matter to someone who's always going to look for a flaw. So I think that we need to remind ourselves, especially as Black people, we're already perceived one way. So not letting the perception of other people get to you should, I think, always be at the forefront of our mind. Not even just our peers, even our family. Like you say, you come from, you know, a supportive family and you want to be that representation of how they raise you. But for a lot of people, it can be total opposite. You know, you can have, sometimes your families can be your biggest haters. And it doesn't matter how good you're doing, you know, they're always going to come for that negative thing. So I think it's very, very vital, especially as Black people, to always remember, like, yes, you are a representation, but always remember that you are your own person and your perception matters the most.
Listen, Black people are not a monolith. Mikhala?
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's covered. It's covered. It's all covered. And I was going to say, it was something that you said about the fruits and of your labors. One of my favorite scriptures is Christ telling us we're the salt and the light of the earth, and how it's our responsibility to preserve and to shine light and ignite light in others. And one thing that has helped me with that pressure, or to remove that pressure, eliminate that pressure, well, for one, it's overall not my responsibility. It's God's responsibility to open up people's hearts. So there's that. But two, a big part of my prayer life has been expanding my capacity. It's been a huge, tremendous breakthrough in that way that I don't take on more, than I should when it comes to responsibility. And if it's being handed to me, it's because God has stretched me to be able to handle it in that space when I'm ready for it at that time. And when you were talking about your niece earlier, it brought tears in my eyes because, and I'm, Jesus, I'm not about that. Because I have a younger sister and a goddaughter that sometimes, even when you feel challenged and you don't know if what you're doing is enough, and you do feel the pressure on your worst day, sometimes it is things outside of yourself and people that you have personal responsibility to show them like what endurance looks like and perseverance looks like and what confidence and courage looks like. They are what drives me and pushes me. So that personal responsibility has been a driving force even when I haven't had it to alone for myself. You know what I mean? So while it can feel like pressure, it's been beauty in the responsibility overall.
Right. I think what I had to learn, especially with you guys talking about not allowing the pressure to get to you, I am number 4 of 5 children. And essentially, me and my younger sister were kind of the do-over children for my father. And one of the hardest things was the fact that I was so gifted. Academics, I wasn't gifted in academics, but in the arts. And I got to the point where I was pouring so much out to impress my dad, to impress all of these other people. I grew up in the church, I'm a PK, and impress all these people, especially when you're a preacher's kid, there's so many eyes on you. And it's so hard to like misstep because your missteps become public. Like they become sermons when you misstep. They become, people's talking points when you misstep. And I was so busy trying to pour into other people that my cup became empty. And what I had to learn is I needed to stop being a cup and become a funnel and allow God to pour into me and allow what God was pouring into me to flow out of me. Because when you are trying to, step up to this responsibility on your own strength, you're only as big as your own strength. And sometimes it's going to take more than your own strength. It's part of the reason after the last episode of Unlikely Angel, I went and I got baptized. Because God was like, this is good. What you're doing is good, but it's going to take more. I require more from you. And sometimes giving more is saying, God, I'm scared as hell. I don't know what you about to do. I don't know what you about to say. I don't know what you about to point me to, but I'm just going to be along for the ride. And sometimes that's what you got to do in order to be able to pour into other people is allow God to just pour through you. Even when you're tired, listen, like every conversation that I have with people, I'm always praying. Even if I'm not verbally saying it, I'm saying it in my mind, praying, listening for what God is saying, because the wisdom comes when you're not quick to speak but quick to listen and listen to what people are saying, because like we said, everybody has value. How they use their value can be questionable, but they have value, and finding those little nuggets of what those people are saying, finding those little nuggets in the things that people are going through, or even taking the opportunity to just feel their pain for a second is so important. But again, setting boundaries is also very important, and knowing how to compartmentalize people is also very important. And that's something that I'm learning right now, because with me being a black masculine presenting woman, it can be hard in our community. I know that Damier can attest to this. Like the non-black, the non-POC queer people be tripping, and it's hard sometimes because we have to sit there and listen to some of the stuff that's being said. And, we have a responsibility for those younger queer kids that are going through the same things to get them to understand, hey, it's not always like this. because those people still get, like you said, we're still black at the end of the day. They can take off all the sparkles, they can take off all the rainbows and stuff and still present in the world in a way where they're not seen as a target. We can't take that off. So learning how to navigate in that world and learning how to, be essentially all things to all people, it can get exhausting. So again, going back to allowing God to pour through you, because it's so important. There was nights where I was crying like, God. And as much as people, I hate it when people say that, like, you go through things for other people. I'm like, I didn't ask for that. I did not. Take me off the strongest soldier list.
Who signed me up for the draft?
I ain't starting to pay that.
But at the same time, people are out here and people's experiences are real. And if there's a chance that I could talk to somebody and reach somebody, if it's even just one person, I'm grateful. And, we're here for you. Like, if you're feeling overlooked, if you're feeling like you can't come to God because of who you believe you are, like, come to him. And if you don't feel like that's what you need to do, you don't have a religion, you don't have something that you want to find a community. Because community is very important. And that's the biggest part, even as Christianity, like, community is the forefront of what we believe. And, there's other things that you could do. There's other communities that are for you. But make sure it's a community that's conducive to your growth. You don't want to be in an area where people lie to you either. You want people to tell you the truth about who you are, because at the end of the day, this life is about becoming better. So find a community that's for you. You're not overlooked. You're just not looking in the right places. Going back to what we talked about, what does visibility look to you without being tokenism? What does visibility look like to you without it being tokenism?
Use tokenism in a sentence.
So tokenism, like, okay, so like the poster boy, like become, Toby be good for massa, like, like that. I had to pull back to roots, but but like because sometimes there's a fine line between it. Like, you want to be free, you want to be in the community, in the fullness of your blackness, but sometimes it can be taken as a gimmick. There's, like, again, roots. I just brought it up. Like, a lot of us as black people, we grew up watching Roots. But in some areas, it's like, okay, to an extent, it was great. It taught what it needed to be taught. But sometimes it leans on the end of tokenism. And finding a balance in between that, where you can be in the fullness of your blackness, but not becoming a caricature.
I mean, I think it really just kind of all boils down to a few of the points that we hit earlier, is just not being afraid to speak up. Because, like we were talking during the intermission about, I'm very grateful to have grown up in a very black city and pro-black city. So I never really had to sit there and not necessarily play with people about it, right? Like, I never had to have that questioned. But for a black woman who grew up in a super suburban white area, all your friends are white, you get these labels placed on you. I think it's just, when you are in those scenarios, being hyper vigilant of the language that's being used and how someone talks about you. Are you being talked about as just a friend or the black friend? Are you being highlighted for your actual gifts and abilities, or the fact that you can just dance on beat? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to like be that, but like, it's like, like, just being hyper vigilant about how you're being portrayed and how the people around you portraying you. Cause like, it can be, ha ha ha, I'm laughing with you, Sam, or ha ha ha, we're laughing at you. And so just making sure you're aware of that and having conversations. I think it's incredibly important to have conversations with other people that look like you or may not even look like you, and see what their experiences are. Because sometimes you may not even know it until you're talking about the conversations, and you're sitting back like, wait a minute, was I being used, or was I being made fun of? So I just think community is important, embracing that differentness and just speaking about it and just being vigilant, and not saying that you should always be like hyper aware, like, oh, are they making fun of me or paranoid or anything, but I think it's just still very important to just be aware of the people that you're connecting with and the circles that you're in.
Right.
I would say the spirit of discernment and realize all skin folk not kinfolk. You know, just because you black, that don't mean you got my best interests at heart. You know, so I think it's as long as you're grounded and rooted in who you are and you don't waver, no matter the room that you in, you'll be alright. Honestly.
My next question is, who was the first person that you saw in the industry that made you feel like I belong here?
I grew up in Detroit, I've mentioned several times now. And as a journalism major, there was a reporter, an anchor. Her name is Carmen Harlan, and she's pretty famous around the city. Everybody knows. If you're from Detroit, you're gonna know who I'm talking about, of course. So seeing those faces on TV and just kind of realizing like, oh, we can make it and we can do it. Also, she's probably not a fan favorite, but Oprah. Like honestly, just seeing a black woman with so much power, because it doesn't, even now in 2025, you say Oprah's name or Oprah's attached to it, it comes with success, power, money. And whether or not you agree with how she made it there or what her moves are now, just being able to say that there is a black woman in that space and in those rooms that I do and can look up to and get there eventually. But I think that's for a lot of black people in this industry. But for me, more personal, I think it was Carmen Harlan in Detroit, and just overall relatable, probably Oprah.
I don't think there's like a specific person for me. I think whatever thing that I want to do, if I look at the highest level achieved and there's a black person sitting right there, then that opens all the paths for me. Because that means at least you're open to the idea of somebody that looks like me. And that's all I need to know.
There is nobody I really said that made me be like, oh, I can do this, because first of all, I didn't think I was going to be in LA in the first place. Just to keep it a buck, because I'm from South Carolina, so I never was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this LA life. It just kind of happened. Tales from the hood coming together. Right? I see when them dogs jump up and nonsense. Right. But honestly, it's kind of like what you said, because now there are a few people from South Carolina that's blowing up. And y'all know the song Boots on the Ground? South Carolina, there's this guy named Bernard, and he's a great chef. And now he's getting recognition. And I was telling them, like, because I made a Facebook post saying, you can make it from South Carolina. Just find something, stay in your lane, and be consistent. Then someone was like, and they were like, but you already been doing that. And it's like down to me, because it's like, I've done so much here in my short time in LA that I'm like, I don't sit back and just be like, oh, dang, I really did. I have done a lot. And now I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I'm that person for other people. Because I didn't really have that representation. Like, oh, I didn't have that LA dream, that call that, oh, I want to be somebody famous. That ain't me. That ain't me. I'm a hard worker. And I think the way God has been blessing me just being in a lot of rooms, and I just try to be a representation. And sometimes when people ask me, like, how'd you do all this stuff? I'm like, I was a good person. And people just call me back because my work ethic and being a good person. I can't tell you anything more or anything less. I didn't do anything different. So yeah, that's me.
I'm actually from North Carolina. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, I'm from North Carolina. So to your point, and from a small town, and most times when I even mention it, like if you're not in the military, don't have family in the military, you won't even know where it is. But being from a small town, you don't always, or even if we see a lot of representation, or like a big artist that I love and admire, you may not even know that they have roots in small towns or anything like that. But I do remember that year that Fantasia won an American Idol, and her being from North Carolina, that was like so big. But I feel like in music, there's so many examples, since Black music is culture, right? So many examples of women and men that I've looked up to that inspired me to do what I do. But you said something very poignant that I didn't realize until I was having one of my existential crises of wondering if I was doing enough and if I was where I wanted to be. And it took someone from back home to tell me, to us, you made it. You left North Carolina and you moved to LA. Sometimes just leaving where you're from can make can be an inspiration all by itself. Back to the song that I wrote that you were talking about, the Annunciation. That was a huge part of it. Me saying that I was a big fish in a small pond that needed to see. I needed to leave, and it takes so much courage to do that. Some people haven't even left a 15-mile radius of where they were born and raised. And it was just very humbling and a moment of gratitude for me to realize that, oh wow, I could be that, or I am that already, even in my striving, just by leaving, just by betting on myself and taking a leap of faith. So I'm actually glad that you mentioned that.
Yes, I said, come on, Carolinas. Me personally, it was Raven Simone. Like, that was like, of course, we had some other people that came before her, but she was who I grew up watching. Like, seeing a full figured black girl, like, and she was the fullness of who she was. Like, she didn't have to tone down who she was. Like, and I was so grateful to Disney for allowing her the space to do that, because we don't get that often. And that was back when Disney was a little bit better. Like, the representation and diversity was so much easier back then without it being so forced, or, hey, look at us, we're so diverse. And like, getting to see Raven, like, do her thing without having to, like, tone it down. She was on there twerking to that bootleg Crazy in Love Beyonce song. Like, that was something, like, that was so unheard of. And so that the point that we got to see that, and I got to grow up with that. I'm like, that's why I say, if I ever were to have kids, don't think I want to, but if I ever was to, my kids will be watching old Disney. They gonna be watching old Disney. Like, they don't get to watch this new stuff. No. Like, they're gonna watch what we watch, because we got to see, like I said, a full-figured black woman. And even just, like, expanding in that, the Cheetah Girls, like, that was so black. Produced by Whitney Houston. You can't get no blacker than that. Like, that movie was so black. That movie was so us. And, like, the fact that they got to, like, stand there, be a representation without it being tokenism. Like, it was just beautiful. And like we said, it was diversity. We had the white girl, we had the Latina, we had the black women, we had a full-size black woman. The only thing that was missing was a dark-skinned woman, but that's okay. It was still back then. But the fact that we got to see that, and we got to, now I can do this, be my goofy self without having to worry about, so many people looking. And like, me personally, I don't believe in code switching. The way I talk to y'all, I talk to my employers. They know me, and I'm not gonna tone it down. Like, and that the fact that we got to see that, and then watching, like, even Raven's transformation as she's grown up. Like, the fact that she's still Disney royalty to this day, and like, now she's came out as a queer woman, and getting to live in her truth, but also still receiving her flowers for it. Like, we don't get too many cases of Disney stars that grew up and then didn't end up strung out, or didn't end up in, like, and yes, she said some questionable things in her past, but we all have. Like, and it's harder when you're living under a microscope. And but the fact that she was still able to, like, hold herself to a standard, that's so rare. And that's why I definitely said, like, shout out to Raven. I don't know if you gonna watch this. You gonna watch this. Somebody send this to Raven. Somebody know Raven. Raven, like, I definitely appreciate you. Like, I grew up watching you, and you're part of the reason why I'm doing this. So yeah, with that being said, before I start crying, everybody's sitting here with the tears and stuff today. But how do you think representation or lack of it has influenced your decisions that you've made in your career?
And I mean, I'm just gonna kind of always kind of come back to this. I think that being in spaces where you are Black and you have to be hyper vigilant of that, I think it's just still very important to speak up, and just make sure you are yourself and you're speaking up for yourself, because it is very, very hard to kind of get that thought out of your head. And you're thinking to yourself, sometimes when you are the only Black person in the room, or you only like the two of us, you want to be like, okay, do I cater to what other people want me to do, or do I stay true to myself? And you just brought up a good point earlier about not code switching. At first, when I started off, of course, I was like, corporate, got to be pristine, tight, speak with this and that. And then, you turn it off and you turn it on, you turn it off. And that's mentally exhausting. And a lot of times you don't even think about doing it. So now I do make it a point to not code switch, because as much as people would like to say it, AAVE and Ebonics, it's a separate language. And if I can walk in a room and have a conversation with you all and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about and I feel safe and I feel comfortable, but someone else walks into the room and I have to change how I'm talking to them in order for them to not only quote unquote understand me, but like see me as someone worth having a conversation with, that's not my problem. And I think that we shouldn't have to turn ourselves down. And I think that other cultures take pride in being able to walk into a room and speak their language, whether it's Spanish or Vietnamese or whatever that language may be. We don't look at them and be like, well, some people, but that's a separate conversation. We're not going to look at them and be like, well, they should not be doing that in this space. Like, come on, have some decorum, do that. If other people get to represent themselves and be proud of their culture and their heritage, then Black people should too. And I think just not being afraid to be unapologetically Black and not being afraid of being perceived as unapologetically Black, I think that's just very vital and important.
Right.
I was gonna say that too. Whenever I see a Black person being unapologetically Black, like that's what inspires me. Like, child, don't perm your hair because you finna be in a room full of white folks. Wear your kinky, wear your 4C. Like, that's who you are. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of times, like you said, like we it's so ingrained in us to button ourselves up, speak with more eloquent and all that type of stuff. And it's like, you're not giving people the opportunity to get to know you for who you are. Allow people to show up for you, but they can't show up for you because they don't know you, because you're sitting here being fake. You know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like when you can double down on your roots, but also maintain a sense of professionalism, because you can get somebody together without clearing a room with a nasty attitude, and I think that's like where the key difference is. And anytime I see that, it's inspirational for sure.
Right.
I wanted to add something to that, because you said, be authentically you. The reason why I'm saying that is because, like how you speaking of eloquence, just don't, I guess what I'm saying, don't forget where you come from, but if you're naturally eloquent, be you. Yeah. Like, just be you. Always be you. We just say, don't forget your Blackness.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like, if you grew up, because I grew up a reader, I always got that comment, you talk white, or you sound white. And I'm like, dog, I can't win for nothing. I can't win for nothing. I was too Black for white people. I wasn't Black enough for my people. So it was just that middle ground. And it's like, but that never deterred me away, because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still going. We
Right.
still eating at the same place. We talking this, but for the representation, I'm just like, hey man, like y'all hit it on the head just for everything. I just wanted to add that tidbit to it, because our Blackness is, there's a myriad of us. There's so much to us. We have the anime Blacks. We have the emo Blacks, we have the rockers, and it's like, I love those kind. And I'm like, but it's like, just don't forget with that, you're still all of us. And that's it. Because your mom probably look like my mom, even though you from Virginia and I'm from South Carolina or whatever. We still fight the same battle together.
And I think when you start to like not be yourself, it's kind of like not internalized racism, but it's like you start to hate that part of yourself. And I think that's the saddest of it all, is we shouldn't have to have permission to be us.
Right.
Nobody should have to tell us it's okay, relax. I shouldn't have to tell my homie, like, I know it's a black event, but how comfortable are we in our blackness at this event? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the more you climb into the ranks, into the corporate world, like, that's why I said all skin folk, not kinfolk. Because sometimes when black people spend a little too much time with other people, they forget, hey, you got to make sure you include us too. And then you get in the rooms and now your black people's making you feel uncomfortable. And it's just a cycle. So the buck stops there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And I will say that I agree with like not policing blackness, and on that same note, to encourage blackness. And I'll give a small little story. When I worked in Flint, one of my good friends, he was a sports broadcaster. I'm not going to say his name out of respect just because I don't know if he wants me to, but he would always do like little things in his sportcast. Like he would say something that like out of a black song or like a black phrase. And one time he did get an email saying, oh, he's too urban, he's this. And so we go back and forth and we joke all the time, like, don't be too urban, don't be too this, that. But like he continued to do this. And I really respect my news director and my other higher ups at the time that was like, no, keep it, do you. You're representing your community. It was in Flint, which is also a very black city in Michigan. You're a representation of who you see on that screen, and you should not have to turn it down just because one person who was a white viewer, surprise, surprise, said that to you. And that shouldn't be on your subconscious. I mean, I don't think he would have changed it anyway, just knowing the person that he is. But, you know, saying that and then just being at home watching it on the flip side, you may not understand it because you're white, but there's one black person out there that was like, I see what you did, you know. So it's representation and encouragement. So not policing blackness, but also encouraging to be, like you said, unauthentically you, not changing, you know, who you are around other black people or just other groups.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with everybody what you were saying with representation, and you know, how it influences how you walk. You know, me personally being a Christian, you know, being a representative of Christ is a part of who I am. And it could be very hard, like, especially like, you know, when you want to, you know, somebody do something that you want to cuss them out, you want to throat chop them and all them other things that you want to do.
says the Lord.
But right. And like, you know, that's part of, you know, again, like us saying, like, recognizing our why. And, you know, for us is recognizing our who. And, you know, recognizing that we need to show love to people regardless of what they got going on, because how people treat us is a reflection of how they treat themselves. And, you know, you can tell when somebody doesn't love themselves or doesn't know that there's somebody out there that loves them. And so just reminding people, like, hey, you're loved, you're special, you're important, you're worthy of all the things that God has for you is something that we have to do on a daily, but not to be so in people's face. And I feel like, especially as Christians, it really irks me when I see people just jumping down other people with their belief system. I feel like, yes, you talk about it in the capacity of the way people are going to understand, and as long as that door is open. But when that door closes, let it stay closed. And a lot of these people, like, they try to rip the door open, and now you've ripped the connection from Christ, and now our blood is on those people's hands, or on their blood is now on our hands. And that's something we never should do. And so being part of being a representative is also knowing when to take a step back, because sometimes taking a step back is an even bigger representation of Christ than speaking. If you look in the Bible, Jesus don't talk much, and that's for a reason. And we as people need to learn how to shut up. Shut your mouth. Like, be quiet. We need to listen to people. Allow them to feel comfortable around us. I don't want to be that person where people feel like they have to do all of this. They have to do it. They can't be themselves. It's not fair. Like, what we believe is what we believe. What we believe, I'm going to say it again. What you believe, hey, because I know you listening, Miss Judgmental Sister Cheryl. What you believe is what you believe. Listen, leave them people alone. Daquan don't care about what you got to say, and that's okay.
And I think,
Right.
just to kind of like wrap that up, I think it's funny because Christ is all about love, man. You guys ever read the Sermon on the Mount? Like, he's all about love, and you using hate to bring people towards him. How does that work? You attract more bees with honey than vinegar. So like you said, little story. One time I went to this pride event, and it was a couple people standing on a corner telling all gay people that they're going to hell. I mean, all night he was just, y'all going to hell, y'all need to repent, y'all about to burn up. And normally I let that stuff roll off my back, but I went up to him. I was like, let me ask you a question respectfully. Do you think you condemning people to hell is going to draw them closer to God? Do you think this is the way Christ wants you to reach his people, by telling them that they're going to hell? So it's like, if you're trying to bring people closer to God, if that's what you choose to do so the way that Christ is, with love. Don't ever force your beliefs down on nobody's throat, because they're not going to receive it the way that Christ is meant to be received. He has to come into their heart. You cannot put Christ in nobody's heart. It does not work that way. And I think that's where the division among Christians are, because we're so busy trying to prove we're holier than thou, when we all die, nobody's going to be like, oh, you are holier than this, or you're this, you're that. It's like, no, we all going to be judged by the same entity, bro. Like, just stop.
I'm glad you said that, because I think, of course, as Christians, you're often driven, well, we're taught to be driven by saving souls. But I always think about, how many souls did you turn away? How many people did you put off from Christ? And I always think about, when Jesus went into the temples flipping over tables, that's why. Because there's such a misinterpretation, and all the love, the plot has been lost. It's really about love. There's love, and love invites change to happen. Love invites the Holy Spirit to have his way with all of us individually in our own walk with Christ. And it is definitely not about forcing God changes hearts. You're absolutely right. He opens up the heart. So yeah, I wanted to add that it's just as important to consider how many people you are turning away from God as it is to consider how many people you're turning towards him.
And I just want to be that one minor representation that's not a Christian here. Y'all are absolutely right. I feel like using your religion as a guide to your morality is never going to be the answer for anyone else. And even just using, guiding with love, even if you aren't religious, there's no way that you're ever going to reach somebody by being hurtful or just hateful, or in general. Like, just, even as a kid, like, if your parents yelled at you, you better go, blah, 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 blah. You're like, well, now I don't want to do it. And it makes me not want to even, think about that, because it's going to bring anxiety or whatever that's going to come to it. I think that more people need to be willing to be open and receiving and just kind and loving and open-hearted as a whole with everything that we do and with everything that we approach, because you attract more flies with honey, also with BS, but that's a separate conversation. But we can keep the conversation rolling. But it'd be a more sweeter effect if you use the honey and not the BS.
Right, and that's the truth. And loving people regardless of what they believe. And allowing those people to have their decisions to be their decisions. There's a reason why free will is called free will. We didn't get free will instilled in us to be able to try to go and then take somebody else's. And that's for any case. I'm talking about taking your power. Any place where you're taking your power over somebody else is not inclusion, it's control. And we need to learn that. And that's the part of what I was talking about just in my community, dismantling those things, because there's still a lot of things that are done in the black church, or in church in general, but really the black church, because that's part of what I've been in, that is so tied to racism, so tied to slavery and the other things that people have done. And dismantling that is a part of showing love. Like, put that church finger down. There's a reason why church finger was a thing. Slave masters needed to know where you were going. Put the church finger down. Ushers, take that one hand from behind your back. Take those gloves off your hands. Yes, I know that's ingrained. That's what we love to do. But why did they wear them white gloves? They needed to see your black hand going in that bucket if you was taking money. Like,
Sometimes
yeah,
tradition is only
yeah.
tradition because no one had the courage to change
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. And that's why we need to be part of that change. There's a reason. Like, they didn't have access to that education. So if that's something that they did, they did what was within their capacity. But we now have capacity for so much more. So breaking down those barriers, breaking down those stereotypes is so important because it is. Part of the problem is a lot of black Christians do not acknowledge this past of slavery and the hold of white supremacy that's still over it. And that's part of it. Like, yes, we could talk about Christianity from, whatever standpoint, but we as black people, it's important. And like leaving people, that's why, I really did appreciate the movie Sinners. Like, it showed so many facets of black people. And whether or not I believe or agree with what they're doing, there it doesn't make it any less beautiful just because I don't believe in it. That's what they believe. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. It has nothing to do with me. And I don't have a right to be offended by what somebody else is doing. But allowing everybody to still, even though they all had their different belief systems, being able to go in that room for one night and coexist without it being a problem until outside forces came. But that's a different story. But, but allowing people to have a space where they can be together without it having one common goal in mind, which in that case was music, but whatever, finding that, wherever you believe, finding a space where you guys all have a common goal in mind that's not putting harm on somebody else. That's the importance of everything. Which goes back to what I was about to ask, the role that community plays in helping you stay visible and grounded with whatever facet that you're in. You being a singer, you being a creative, you being a creative, you being a creative. What is the importance of community for you? Mm-hmm.
Community is everything, man. It's literally, what was it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs of what humans need, so it's scientific driven. So to me, community is everything. Community in my faith, community in my blackness, community in my queerness, because those are the three main things that kind of make up me. So I think if you don't have community, it's easy to get lost within the world, and it's easy to get lost within your head and within yourself. And a lot of times you can be at your lowest, but let one of your homies call you, and all of a sudden, was it serotonin is released in your brain? All of a sudden, dopamine is released. Now you're a little happier, So as much as this culture want to say, oh, trust no one, and it's better to go at it alone because people are fake, people are snakes. No, it's the people you surround yourself with. You know what I mean? So if you don't like the way your life is, you should probably switch up your community. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around. 4 of your friends ain't nothing, you ain't nothing. If 4 of your friends is broke, you broke. And that's just kind of how it is. So if you surround yourself with people that's pushing you forward, whether it be in your 9 to 5 life, your creative life, or your religious life, or whatever the case may be, you'll be all right. I think everybody needs community. One of the things I'm planning on doing that I talked to Gabby about is I'm actually planning on starting like a queer Bible study, because I feel like it's a lot of us who are hurt by the church and who don't know that God loves them despite it all. So that's a community that I want to start, because there's a lot of my people that are lost. And it's a lot of things that are going on within the community, and it's because it's not centered in Christ. And I'll never try and push my belief on anybody, but anybody who wants to reach what camera, anybody that wants to reach God but think God don't loves them, I want to start something to prove that He does. If that's what you want, I would love to open the door for that, just how Gabby opened the door for me. So that's how important community is. I'm sitting here because you created community. So that just goes to show it's really important, So
I think you made a really, really great point earlier about how we have this culture of like trust no one, blah 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 blah. I'm an extrovert. I love meeting people, but over the years I was kind of betrayed by people that I held very near and dear to my heart, and I did find myself kind of hardening my heart in that way, being like, whatever, can't trust people. And I've always been very hyper independent anyway growing up. So I think one of the conversations I had to have with myself is like, not everyone's out to get you. And I think one of the biggest things for me was allowing myself that forgiveness of these people and forgiving myself for, because the first thing we do, right, when someone does something to you or anybody for that matter, is you start blaming yourself, like, why was I so stupid, why was I this, or why did I let this slide, and yada yada yada. But you have to have that conversation. At least I'm going to speak for myself, having that conversation with myself, being like, were you stupid for, you know, being in community with somebody, trusting somebody, wanting to support and love and encourage somebody? I can't control the actions of other people. And I think, especially in the society that we're living in right now, it's push, you know, separate. And I know we were just talking earlier about, you know, being stronger as a community and gatekeeping in a way, but I think that it's also very important to remember that just society is not going to function without community. You can be, I think it's incredibly important to focus on yourself and setting those boundaries, but I also think it's incredibly important, and we talk about it all the time, it takes a village. But are you remembering to pour into your village as well? Is remember, like, it's important to not take advantage of that village. It's important to not, you know, forget that village. And I think that we again want to live in this mindset where it's like Miss Independent. I got my own. Yes, I have my own, and I'm very, very proud of that. No one can ever take that away from me, but I'm also so community oriented. And so, you know, it's so important to have community because, like you said earlier, when we're at our lowest, I'll be the first to get on the phone with my best friend if she's talking down on herself. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking about? Like, I know you're not talking about my best friend, right? Like, don't talk about my friend that way. But when it comes to me, I'm like going over and over and over in my head about how, you know, I could have did this better or how I didn't do that. And you did bring up something very important earlier in both of you about being like from North Carolina and hearing it from your friends. I have a very hard time of like giving myself credit. And I am so lucky to have people in my life, friends and family, just being like, dude, what are you talking about? You moved from state to state and you're still standing on your own. The trials and tribulations that you told me about, I would have lost my mind. I would have did this and I would have did that. How many times are you saying, good for you, Diamond? How many times are you patting yourself on the back and also still being there and encouraging the people around you? And, you know, we've talked about this earlier, Gabby, like just even creating this community and reaching out and like putting your friends into these different spaces, because I wouldn't have met Tu without you. I wouldn't have met Sam without you, you know, and just kind of creating that community is so important and vital. But that community and bringing your own strengths to that community. I think I just kind of said a bunch of everything, but yeah.
Is essential. All my friends, we all took the leap of faith to move here to LA. They're all in entertainment in some way, shape, or form, and we all came from the South too. Majority of us came from the South. So being in the trenches with one another, if I don't have it and you got it, you're helping me, and when I have it and you don't have it, I'm helping you. Like, it's already a huge undertaking and very delusional to be like, I'm about to go be a star in Hollywood. Okay, and so did 10 million other people. 10 million other people decided to do the same exact thing.
Right.
So community is so important, especially on your worst days or your burnout days when you're tired, being able to pour into one another. And like you said, like those days when a friend is not being that kind to themselves, you get to pour into them. And likewise, when you're not being that kind to yourself, you have them to pour into you. And iron sharpens iron. You said earlier about you are the culmination of the 5 people that are closest to you. It's very true. Iron sharpens iron. There's no way around it. And you need to feel, as much as we can come up with our own fuel for pushing ourselves through purpose and own drive, it's so important to surround yourself with driven people or loving people, people that are kind, people that don't shame you, people that don't condemn you or aren't condescending towards you, but that hold space for you, because it really does help you hold space for yourself and show up and shine.
Right.
So community is so important.
Right. And I know that you guys were talking about having the importance of people that will build you up. And that's so important, but there's also the importance of knocking you down a couple notches sometimes. Like, you know, we love to talk about community when it's benefiting us sometimes. Like, we love to be like, yeah, yeah, I'm so great. Yeah, I get it, get it, get it. And that's cool. But sometimes your head get too big and you need somebody to be like, hey, hold up.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
Or sometimes
yeah.
there's harsh truths
Mm-hmm.
that need to be presented. So if you're blocking yourself or in your own way, you need your friends to tell you that. Girl, you're tripping. You're standing in your own way. You need more discipline. You need more strategy. You need more commitment. Like we need to be honest with one another. Because sometimes you can't see your blind spots.
Right.
Sometimes you need your community see the blind spots for you. So and do it in love, so that it doesn't feel impossible or intangible that you can grow in these areas.
Right.
But having their love and encouragement that you can, but you need the honesty. So you're absolutely right.
You know, a lot of people always say iron sharpens iron, and it sounds so beautiful until you actually think about iron sharpening iron. It hurts, it burns, it's stuff, but it's like, will a better product come from that? Yes, yes, but also to have a friend, you must be a friend, and I take pride in that saying that because I can't ask you to do something if I'm not doing it myself. And if I want the community, I have to be that. You're a reflection of me. And that's what I believe in my community. And that's why I'm so grateful for the community I have, because no one can tell me about someone's character but that I don't know. Because if you're really transparent and vulnerable with me, I already knew. So when someone tries to talk crazy about you, I can defend you. Because it's like, no, I know this person. Do they have faults? We all do.
Yeah.
But this right here, nah,
Yeah.
that's not them. And it's like, that's why just the whole community, we have someone to hold us accountable. Also lift us up, but give us those harsh truths that we need. Because if you don't have that, life's going to be tough. I ain't lying.
I want to speak to a group that I feel like needs a lot more community, and that's black men or black masculine people in general. Because growing up, like, you're taught, like, keep your emotions to yourself. You know what I mean? Don't be too this, don't be too that, don't be too sassy. Watch what you wear. Like, I mean, I can't even speak too much because I've only been a man for like 8 years. So for you, like, you know, let's be honest here, you know. But for you, like, I could imagine how tough it is growing up as a black man in America, bro. Like, I could imagine just like you have no room to do nothing without someone calling out your manhood, calling out your sexuality, just calling you out. And I think that's why they say that black men don't have any true friends, and that they're the most they have the highest level of suicide rates because black men don't hold each other accountable. You see another black man beating on this woman and you don't say nothing. You hear your friends talking about, oh yeah, I'm gonna just slip this girl this drug and da-da-da-da, and you don't say nothing. You see your black friend talking to his mom down and you don't say nothing. And you see your black friend have a baby and he's leaving that baby fatherless and you don't say nothing. So do you really have friends or do you have fans? And that's the T right there. I think we all need to get better at holding each other accountable. And accountability is not pretty. I am not here to be pretty. I'm here to make you a better person. And sometimes that takes a little iron sharpening iron. That shit's not cotton. That hurts. But guess what? Pain breeds growth. You know what I'm saying? Pressure makes diamonds. And if you're just going to sit around and you're going to let your friends do whatever, you're not being a friend. And you cannot expect that friend to be you. So I'm going to always call all my friends out on their stuff, because if I'm not going to do it, the world's going to do it in a way that's going to leave you behind bars or dead.
Right.
And not on my watch.
And I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because I was just about to say the same thing. It's not only holding each other accountable is incredibly important, but being willing and open to accept and hear things about yourself that you do not want to hear. And I struggle with that. I have struggled with that growing up, because it's like you have to be, in order to grow and change, sometimes, like me, like we were talking earlier about not sugarcoating things for people. I don't sugarcoat a lot of things for people, but I cannot carry that mentality and that that attitude and not be willing to receive that myself. And like you said earlier about knocking yourself down a peg and like opening your eyes to a lot of things, you need to be able to open your mind and your heart to a lot of harsh truths about yourself and be willing to accept that in and not taking criticism from people around you that love you and want you to grow as attacks. And a lot of people struggle so hard with that. It's just like, and especially like Black parents, but separate conversation, separate conversation. But being willing to accept that accountability and, like you said, community and accountability is so important, especially for Black people. And like you said, especially Black men. And knowing that the people around you should be loving and trusting with who you are as a person. Like you said, if someone's talking down on you and I know you deeply and fully, I can be able to be like, that's not Sam. I don't know what you're talking about. Or, you know, even speaking up for their character, but also being willing to take a deep dive and look at your character. Is this person right? Or am I just being defensive to this because I know to some capacity they are correct and I'm not willing to change?
Definitely agree with everything that was being said. Building up, holding people accountable, loving each other, telling the truth in love. And I feel like that's another part is showing people, hey, you can tell somebody the truth, but you need to tell them the truth correctly, because if they can't get past your delivery, they will never receive what you are trying to say to them. And so going back to, you know, just being a community that's in love, being a community that tells the truth, being a community that is an actual community. I'm saying this also, people pleasing is a form of manipulation when it comes to friendships. If you are in a true friendship, you cannot be a people pleaser, because you are the person that becomes the apologist when your friend does something to somebody else, violate somebody else's rights, violate how somebody else can move through this world. And if you're staying silent, you are manipulating them into liking you. And you're not here to be like, you're here to make people get through life easier. And that's not okay. So do not be a people pleaser if you're in friendship. And it's easier said than done. But again, your community should be able to point those things out to you. See, hey, you're doing things that are not conducive to your growth. Let's go back to those things. And also, yes, rely on your community, but also find a therapist. Your friends are not a therapist.
You know what I'm saying? Because check this out.
Right.
I got a full-time job.
Right.
And it don't include cleaning up your mess.
Your
bruh.
friends is not a therapist. Your friends are not
Out
a
on
therapist.
growth therapy. Can you please say that again?
Yeah. So, yes, your community can be a lot of things, but they cannot be all things to all people.
And I want to say, sorry, can we normalize asking, hey, before I vent to you, do you have the emotional capacity to carry my load? Because my God, sir, I've had a day and you sitting here calling me, not even asking, like, ask me, am I available for this? And then also normalize asking, hey, are you looking for advice or do you just looking to vent? Because sometimes I just need you to shut up. Mm-hmm. Respectfully, though. Mm-hmm. Respectfully.
And normalize expressing if you don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a reflection of either friendship or anything like that. It should be respected just as much. You can make space for them to vent. They can make space for you to say no, not today, not in this moment. Mm-hmm. Come back around, maybe tomorrow after I'm done compressing my own emotional, whatever I may be going through, or my own thoughts. But give me space for that. That's still love too.
Right.
Also make sure that you're willing to give exactly what you're getting. Because I know a few people that'll call my phone and be like, girl, I just went through A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Bye. What about me? Or then be the turnaround. I don't know. Sometimes all you talk about is this, and this. So again, if you're that person that can call your friends up and vent about how they're going through, you better make sure at the end of the day you turn around. But how are you? Exactly. Like, make sure you're taking care of your village again. I don't think there's anybody on this planet that hasn't gone through some point in their life feeling like they weren't good enough, or they weren't comfortable in a scenario, or just wanting that drive to do more or feel more accepted. But at the end of the day gotta end. And I know that's so cliche, but like, you just got to keep going and trying harder for yourself. If you know, if you really need that passion, I guess my best advice is, surround yourself with that community. And that's been a common theme with everyone. Seek out people with the same goals and dreams and ambitions, because sometimes your environment can be the one thing that's keeping you back and keeping you down. So just self affirmations, surrounding yourself with people. And sometimes that does come with stepping out of your comfort zone to find that community, because the one that you have, not saying that they won't be good enough, but sometimes they just won't meet those needs that you need. So just being willing to do and want better for yourself kind of requires that action on your own behalf. So just keep pushing and keep going, and like make sure you're taking those steps to push yourself to get to the places that you want to get to.
I would say, I think a lot of times, if you're feeling like overwhelmed with how much you have to do, like having like imposter system syndrome, sometimes you don't get to see the whole staircase. You just need to see the next step. And as long as you can just keep seeing the next step, just take the next right step, and then eventually you'll have path that you need to make. We all show the process of trying something, and we all feel like we don't know. But if you don't feel like there's a path for you, and then eventually somebody will get inspired by your leadership, I should say, and then people will follow.
I would say, being uncomfortable in your skin, and having a voice is not always. There's very few people who are like, "Hey, look at me! I'm ready to be the center of attention." Most people struggle with that to some degree. So first off, it's normal. It's a part of development. It's part of process, and I would say, encourage yourself to do things that scare you. Big chunk of why I even did music was because, and I think this is God's to have this idea so young. I remember saying to myself, because I loved school and wanted to go to college, and I said, school will always be there, but this is, I should go in this direction. And I know that was wisdom beyond. It wasn't determined definitely by my fear, because I was scared to death to do it. But it was wisdom that was more than me at the moment. I think making choices, things that scare you, that make you uncomfortable, they grow you and they give you confidence. Like the reward of that is confidence, because then you learn that, oh, I did that. Oh, I mean, if I'm here still here to talk about it, even if it hurts, even if you fail, even if you learn, if you're alive to talk about the failure, then it's not really a failure, is it? You know what I'm saying? You're learning, you're growing, you're developing, and just having respect for the process, not internalizing that just because you feel uncomfortable in your skin, that you have to identify with that. It's a part of a journey of just being human and learning your place in this world. And there's no way to do that, to expand past your comfort, or to expand your comfort zone without taking steps outside of it. Every time you take a step outside of it, your comfort zone gets bigger. You get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then I would
And change never comes without some sort of feeling or some sort of underlying, you know, change, quote unquote. Like, obviously, if you are feeling this push and this pull towards it, you're not going to change sitting in the same space. You're not going to wake up and be like, I'm doing the exact same thing every day. I feel comfortable. I feel fine. Because obviously that's not bringing change. Just think about it like in the metamorphosis of a butterfly. Obviously I'm pretty sure it doesn't feel good to that caterpillar to go through all of that cocoon. But like when they come out of it, they're a butterfly. And whether or not the butterfly is pretty or whatever, that's all up to you and your own perspective. But no change is going to come without having that feeling of fear or the what ifs and all that. And if you are feeling that, like you were saying, you are probably being called and pushed to go down that route, because that's when the most change is going to come, whether it's for the better or for the worse. But at least you can say, I did it.
I think a lot of times when you have narcissism, come with yourself, so you haven't sat with yourself, you sat with the traumas and fears that life put on you, but you got to settle yourself. So I encourage everybody to go back to your inner child, heal your inner child. A lot of times as we get older, we forget what it's like to be childlike. And have you guys ever sat around and watched kids? They'll just do stuff. They don't care if they feel fall or they and it scares the heck out of parents, but sometimes it's inspirational because they jump and they say, "Oh wait, I'm not gonna let him do that." But sometimes that's scary, but that's what's needed. You know, like you guys are saying, you gotta push yourself out your boundaries. You know, heal that part of yourself that's causing you to be scared. Because no one comes from comfortability, it's just you know, when you only get one life, you know, and life is scary.
You know, it's crazy. I was thinking, and that was the point. So I was like, okay, spirit, no spirit. But what is it? Make her not only, but be self-reflecting. Take a step back and just appreciate who you are, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and just do things. Ultimately, like you said, make yourself happy, make that child happy. Do it by yourself. Go to the movies by yourself. Take that trip. Just take yourself out to eat. Whatever that looks like to you, but make yourself happy. And keep living. You have not seen your best days yet. You haven't met the most amazing people yet. There's so many more things that you haven't done that's going to blow your mind away. And that's what I was just say. Just keep living. Keep trying to make the right decisions, because it's one choice at a time. And remember, it's one choice at a time. That's life. But yeah, keep going. That's what I said.
But sometimes get uncomfortable in this thing is a great indicator that it's old finishes. It's you are trying to escape. And I've learned that in, I would say, some of the hardest ways. That discomfort and that frustration, use that as a sign to know that, okay, I have changed your point. It'll point you to the direction you know that change is needed here. That's your spirit crying out for change. Take us to change, move us. We can't go here. It's stagnant. Said. Then while the fear can often tell you, but what have you done? What have you done? We've done it for stagnant. It's stagnant. That's when you're dying. It's not growing and moving and changing, it's dying. And when you see it in that way, that will sometimes give you the fuel to take the step, despite what you
One last thing I will say, I was kind of terrified, you know, a good portion of us being transplants in here, of making that move to California, because people always, you know, kind of put that fear in your heart. Like, it's so hard to make it. It's so hard to do this. And when I made the decision to come out here, I was like, you know, I was terrified. I'm like, you know, am I going to have enough money? Am I going to, you know, actually land in the place that I want to land? And there were so many of these thoughts that were circulating in my head. But then there was another voice that was fighting that. Like you said to yourself, like, there was another part of me that's like, okay, Diamond, but, you know, what if we choose the safe option? Are you happy here? You just literally had this whole conversation about yourself. You know that's what you want. You know that's something different that you're craving. So if you choose not to take that route, are you going to be happy with yourself in a year? Maybe even a week. You know, are you going to sit there and be like, I wish I could have did it, or I wish I just should have did it, or just do it and not work out, and you're like, okay, at least I can say I tried and it wasn't the route for me. I go back to, you know, and then that's the beauty of life, getting to start over, having those second chances. And, you know, maybe what you thought you wanted wasn't really what you wanted, but that's the beauty of constant change. And like you said, shedding your skin. If you think about like animals, like, you know, shrimp and snakes with their exoskeleton, they are growing whether we want to or not. And they're not going to be like, oh, but I kind of like this skin. You know, it's so good. They're going to shed and keep it pushing. And as they're continuing doing their life, you know, their old skin is there and it's going to decompose and rot away, go back to the earth. And that's just how it should be. And if you are afraid of change, that means you are on the right step to going in the direction you need to be going.
My name is Sam Smoot, and I am the unlikely angel.
I am Diamond Henry, and I am an unlikely angel.
My name is Damier Johnson, and I'm an unlikely angel.
My name is Mikhala Jené, and I am an unlikely angel.
Clap it out, we did it! Hey.